First of all, thank you everyone for coming. I know you have very busy schedules, and I'm truly honored that you've taken the time out of your day to come and see me. This is really my story. There's nothing to teach. It's not going to be an overly motivational speech. I'm just here to share myself with you, and I hope that that gives you the courage to share your story. So I'm from Rhode Island, and this is my first time speaking, so I'm going to be very honest with you. Owning the moment. So I was at my father's house a couple summers ago, and he said, "Stephen, your shit's in my closet. Come over here and clean it out. I'm tired of being in your storage." And as I was looking through these boxes, I found a letter that I wrote when I was back in 11th grade. So just to kind of get you where I'm coming from and where I'm going, I'm going to read a little bit of this to you. It's the littlest things that happen in your life that can affect you more than you've ever realized. Meeting certain people and going to different places changes you as a person. And I feel that one of the most important things in life is change. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. It might be rough at the time, but when you think through it and make things better, you'll emerge as a whole new person. My mind is so expansive these last few days, and something took place that I never thought would happen. I found a reason to live past the age of 20. A few weeks ago, I was 100% suicidal, and I didn't know, and I didn't want to tell anyone because I didn't want to be put in special treatment. My counselor asked me if I've ever thought of killing myself, and I lied because I didn't want to be put in special treatment. People might say, "Oh, big deal. You're grounded. That's why you want to leave." At times I want to leave because I can't handle myself in the world. It feels as if the whole world jumps in my head, and sometimes I just want to scream. But when I felt like that, I didn't know what to do with myself. But like I said, every event and every time something happens in your life, it's for a reason. And from that experience, I've realized how important life is. And if you're having a hard time with something, don't take the easy way out. Know that one day you'll get through it, and as a result, you'll be a stronger person, and life will hopefully be that much more beautiful. So that's where I was, feeling hopeless, having no idea what to do with my life, having no idea why I should stick around. So this was about the time when I was diagnosed bipolar type 2. So there are two kinds. Bipolar type 1 is where you feel like you're God, like you're famous, like you can do anything and you can fly. Type 2 is a little more manageable. It's where you can live a life and not necessarily be on disability. So at this time, so much honor to my parents, they didn't really know what was going on, and neither did I. I was kind of along for the ride. I started on medication, and so began my 17-year journey to where we are right now. I was seeking strength, structure, predictability, because bipolar, it puts you on this journey where you are either up or you're down, you're sad for no reason, you're excited and you don't know why. And so began my life of feeling like a victim to a diagnosis that was given to me. You know, there's no blood test for bipolar. It was really the result of a panel of people, maybe some family history, a behavioral test that I took with pen and paper, and I found myself living the life of someone with bipolar. So, as luck would have it, I became an engineer, thanks to my father's suggestion, and I said, sure, let's do it. And I naturally gravitated to this type of study because it was formulas, it was predictabilities, it's how can I determine the outcome? It made me feel very safe. So as the years went by, constantly seeing mental health practitioners, trying this medication, trying that, I realized that no fault of their own, but anytime I would say my life was going a different way, they would just want to throw some medication at me. And I kept telling them, I understand what you're doing, but my mission is to become medication-free. I want to learn the skills. What can we do? What's the formula? You know, the engineer, what's the formula to figuring this thing out? So many years of ups and downs, it brought me down to Tampa. And here I am, chasing success, wanting to know what book could I read to make me feel better? What person could I follow to make me feel better? Because I was terrified to feel sad. I was terrified to have a bad day, because the scary thing about bipolar is they tell you the higher your highs, the lower your lows. Tell that to anybody. I don't care if you're 17, 30, or 50. You'll suddenly become afraid to be happy. You'll be afraid to have a good day, because the higher you fly, the farther you'll fall. That's reason enough to live a mediocre, safe life. Don't do too much. Don't reach out. Don't get too excited. So here I am in Florida, trying to get here, basically, trying to get exactly where I'm standing. And this story started first with the letter, realizing where I came from, and then about last year, as luck would have it, I was going to the pharmacy to fill my script, to get my medication filled, and life was good. I was managing my mood, I was taking care of myself, I was separating myself from my feelings, not going on the roller coaster, until I pulled up to the drive-through line of Brooks, or Walgreens. And all of a sudden I became very anxious because there was an issue with filling out the script. And because I'd gotten to a point where I could separate myself from my emotions and kind of be on the balcony and see what was happening, I thought, this is stupid, this is crazy. The time when I'm most anxious, when I'm feeling most upset and out of control, is when I need to get my medication? There's something wrong with that. So I need to say, I am not standing here telling you to not take medication. I don't think medication is bad. This is my disclaimer. But this is my journey with it, because medication saved my life. But I believe that I started to mature emotionally and as a person and get the coping skills to be in a place where I could actually feel the sedation. So the medication I was on for the longest time is called Depakote, and it's designed for people with epilepsy. So people with epilepsy have seizures, and it's basically a short circuit of their brain waves. So if you think of a sine wave, up and down, you can go too high, you can go too low. It's basically a sedative for your brain waves to keep you safe, to keep you from going manic and going very deep. But at the same time, when you start to wake up internally, you can feel the saran wrap. So I was looking for a way to connect. I'm always feeling like I can't connect. I can't level up. What's holding me back? So I'm at the drive-thru, and they managed to give me an emergency fill, which I hope no one knows what that feels like, but it's like, here you go. We're going to give you 3 more days of security, predictability, feel good, etc. So I had 3, but I normally took 2 at night, so 6 all weekend. So they gave me 3, and I said, shit. I can either have a terrible weekend before it even happened, or I can say, I'm not going to be a victim to this. I'm going to ride my own ride, and I'm going to make the best of it. So as luck would have it, Monday came around, and I said, you know what? I've thought about doing this in the past. If this is my mission to become medication-free and to live my life the way I am now, maybe this is the universe giving you kind of a little bit of a nudge. Give it a shot. So one day led to the next, and I knew it was important to let my accountability group know, let my support system know, because something that happens with people with bipolar is they won't take their medication on purpose because they want to stoke the high. They want to ride the ride because you don't need a lot of sleep, you're very productive, it's easy to talk, share your ideas, so people stoke that. But I was always very responsible because I was afraid to feel too good, and I didn't want the impending doom that came after that. So I told my PCP, my head doctor, my mother, my family, my friends, say, hey, by the way, can you keep an eye on me? Keep me accountable. Because I was a little afraid that I truly was manic, and it was like part of my brain was playing a trick on me saying, no, you're fine, don't take it, you'll be good. So this past year was the beginning of, I'll call it an emotional awakening, because being sedated for so long, which kept me safe when I didn't know how to manage my emotions, now I was beginning to feel them. And there were a few emotional outbursts. I got mad, I got sad. That was something I'd never really felt before. And I didn't know where all this was coming from. But it took a very conscious decision to tell myself, to not tell myself, oh, you're going crazy, you're getting upset, you're getting sad, go back on your medication, this is scary. Versus These are emotions that you haven't felt because you haven't had the capacity because you've been sedated. And what's interesting, I threw a fit. I got upset, I stubbed my toe, and it was very unlike me. But I told myself, isn't this kind of a fit that a high school student would throw? Until it dawned on me that I started taking my medication when I was 17. So there was a part of my emotional development that was stunted, that didn't have a chance to express itself. And then I thought, how can I stoke more emotion? How can I get more of this out of me? How can I process this? So I went to a hypnotherapist. I'll try anything. I took improv, and I fell in love with improv. I took an improv class over in St. Pete. And the thing that I learned most about it was the concept of permission. When you're watching improv, whether you've seen Whose Line Is It Anyway, or maybe a duo, it's a tennis match, back and forth. I do something, you do something. It's very unscripted, so you're constantly in the moment. You have to be very present, you have to listen, and then you have to affect the scene with your language. So understanding this concept of permission, I started to think, what am I really doing by feeling my feelings? I'm giving myself permission to feel. And as I let these emotions process, I learned so much more about myself and realized that it's not about not having a bad day. It's about having a bad day and owning it, giving yourself permission to feel it. Don't numb, don't distract, because pain or any other emotion is simply a compass. Whether you have bad habits, you're in a bad relationship, you hate your job, if you're not numb, you can feel it. So what's the point? It has a lot to do with listening to who's in front of you, listening to what's going on inside of your head. So it's really interesting if you take an improv class or you ever try this, actually, or in everyday life, when you're talking to someone, we're all guilty of thinking of your response ahead of time rather than truly listening to that person. But I think that's kind of an obvious model. The one that's less talked about is turning that into ourselves. Are we listening to the language we're using with ourselves? Are we listening to the habits that we're creating for ourselves? So what does this have to do with mental health? Mental health, to me, I believe, is a process. And I'm here to hopefully encourage the conversation to talk about our mental health. So there's a difference between mental health and mental illness. Mental health has to do with your general well-being, whether it's cognitive, behavioral, etc. If we're going to talk about mental illness, these are symptoms that affect your well-being. So someone said to me, oh, well, mental health, those are symptoms. That's when you're off your game or you're feeling bad or you're not treating yourself right. No, mental health, how is that any different than your physical health? So let me point out the difference to hopefully stoke the conversation to get people talking about their mental health. It doesn't mean you're depressed. It doesn't mean you're crazy. Because maybe this is my insecurity where I always thought people would think I was crazy. They found out about my secret. So with that said, as we're watching improv, you can see the back and forth. You can see them listening to each other. You can see them being present. And you can see the language that they're using. If we can see that on the outside, back and forth with someone else, if we did this with ourselves, we could be more present and understand what we truly wanted. And I say this because the last year of my life, this is what changed me the most. The medication is something that happened specifically for my journey. I began to feel what I was feeling. And these guys right here, I met Tony Robbins with them. You're the first people I told. And I was terrified that you guys wouldn't be my friend. I would think, oh, he's bipolar, he's crazy, F that. I'm not going to deal with that. In high school, I was afraid girls would date me. It was like the big thing, like if they found out, is she going to have kids who have mental health issues because is it hereditary? All this junk. So once I started to listen to myself and tell people around me and realize, it's not that they didn't care, but it was like, cool, whatever. People have their shit, no big deal. So this happened very well to me when I went to the hypnotherapist last January. I went in there very nervous, thinking, oh, what am I going to do? What am I going to say? I don't want to trick her thinking that I know what's going on because I've dealt with mental health practitioners in the past. And I didn't want my subconscious tricking her into hiding what's at my source, because that's what I was ultimately trying to find. So I basically verbal dumped, told her everything, and she looked at me and she said, so you think you're special? And while it sounds maybe a little off-putting, it was exactly what I needed to hear, because it made me realize that in this regard, I'm not that special. people have these problems. Like, are you the only person who's been diagnosed with bipolar? No, you're a jerk to think so. So then I started putting myself out there. Started at Tony Robbins. My buddies didn't think I was crazy, so I was like, shit, maybe no one thinks I'm crazy. And the more people I told, the less it became this dark cloud over my head. So I started sharing ideas on Instagram Live, talking about mental health, stoking the conversation, things that I was just naturally interested in. Because I'd been studying informally these things for 17 years, looking for the formula or looking for the secret recipe to make me feel better. As luck would have it, if I had simply embraced my sadness or my down days, I would have realized that that's what it's all about. It's not about running away from the lows. So on the concept of permission, giving yourself permission to be who you are and share with the people around you, I believe is the common denominator. It's the first step to bettering your mental health. If you just are who you are, where you're at, you can eat well, you can read books, you can go to seminars, you can do all these things. But if you're not feeling what's going on inside of you, if you're not allowing yourself to be messed up where you are confused, feeling crazy, then you're not going to get anywhere. You're simply running from it. So as I began to realize that this not only empowered myself, but lifted other people up around me, I decided, well, I need to share my story. So I started a podcast. And the name of it is My Niche is Human. Because one of the things that was holding me back, amongst others, self-worth, imposter syndrome, issues with credibility, all these things, I was trying to decide what is my niche. What's the thing you pick? Because they say pick a niche or die. And realizing now that this is a niche, but at the time it was like, you know what? My niche is human because I don't want to pick. It's everybody, it's everyone, it's everything. So started that to give myself permission to share my story. And the interesting thing about it is you're inspiring people without even knowing it. So if you take anything away from this, besides the fact that I am here to get the monkey off my back, and thank you so much for coming, it's that if you want to help someone, be your absolute best and share your story. Share how bad of a day you're having, because if you've ever had a time where maybe you're meeting someone you don't really know, and you decide, oh, you know what, there was this one time I did this weird, crazy thing, and I felt like an idiot, I was embarrassed, and then all of a sudden they tell you something. They're like, oh yeah, shit, like there was that time where I was feeling strange, or I did something stupid. That's you giving them permission. That's not you telling them, hey, be at peace with that weird thing that happened to you, or you should think differently about that. Simply showing up gives other people permission. So I think that's it.